Hi, I'm Lhadon.
I'm Tendor. Welcome to our nation.
News and analysis on the state of Tibet. Today is Sunday, March the 8th. I'm coming to you from Hong Kong. Tendor is now in India. He will tell you a little bit about where he is.
I'm actually in Dharamsala right now, and I'm at the SFT India office right here. And I'll show you a little bit of Dharamsala that I can see from here. Right here is a Tibetan flag, which you see a lot. Over there, in the distance, you can see Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts. And then just turn a corner, what you can see up there is the Teopa village. And down below, you can see the Amdo village, I think, And this right below the street down there is Jogibara Road, the famous Jogibara Road, on which the Tibetan Reception Center is built. And behind this little hill over here is the residence of the Dalai Lama. And I'm going to go inside the SFT office. It's been a really busy day. Everybody in Dharamsala is getting ready for March 10th. This March 10th in particular is obviously a very, very important and significant day. So right now, this is the SFT India office, and Tenchu is sitting right here, and Cheng is in a meeting with other organizations in this tiny room here.
Let's see Tenchu. Where's Tenchu?
Here.
Hi, Tenchu. All right. Well, right to the news of the day. We have news of yet another protest in Tibet, again in Amdo Ngaba by the monks of Gomang Monastery. We also have a photo that's just come out of Tibet. It's from just before Losar, and it's of army or troops moving through Amdo Ngaba town. So, Tendor, do you want to explain the Gomang protest?
Sure. We've been hearing reports that there's been yet another protest in Ngaba in Amdo, Tibet. And this time it's at a monastery called Gomang Monastery in Ngaba. And it's apparently 13 kilometers from the famous Kirti Monastery, about 14 kilometers from the same monastery where there was a protest just 2 days before that. And what we have heard is, on the morning of last Monday, about 20 monks from Gomang Monastery went on a protest march toward town, and they were shouting slogans including "Long live the Dalai Lama," "We want human rights," and also they were shouting "Rise up, all the tsampa eating Tibetans." So the monks apparently got about a kilometer away from the monastery when they had been joined by a lot more people. And at that time, we heard there were over 200 people, including monks and lay Tibetans, who have now joined the protest. At the same time, there were other Tibetans who have come from neighboring areas on horseback and motorcycles once they heard about the protest. And these Tibetans came there out of concern for the monks, and they were trying to convince the monks to return to the monastery and stop the protest because they were aware of the dangers it posed on the monks' lives, and they were really concerned about the monks' lives, most importantly. But the monks weren't listening. They refused to go back. Some of them lay down on the ground and continued chanting the same slogans. But eventually, some of the Tibetan officials teamed up with the monastery management team, and they convinced the monks after a 3-hour standoff to return to their monastery. And I think that definitely saved the lives of many monks, because at that time, the Chinese soldiers were waiting just 2 blocks away from the point where the monks had reached. So that night, we have heard that at least one monk was taken away by the police. His name was Tangzin, 20-something years old, and that's the most recent that we have heard about this incident.
Yeah, the moving thing when you hear that story is how I gather from the witnesses and the people who've relayed this information to us, the word spread really quickly all around that area, that the monks were engaged in this march and protest march, and people came on horse and on motorcycle from all over, family members of these monks, to try and plead with them to stop. And there was this extremely emotionally charged exchange on a lonely road somewhere in eastern Tibet, as this, really it's a battle for life and death and whether these monks were going to go or not. And whether the families could save them or stop them. Just the idea that this is all going on inside Tibet, we only hear about it almost a full week later. It's really quite moving and remarkable what is going on inside Tibet still at this time. Also very moving and extremely disturbing are these two images that have come out of Tibet of Tape, the Tibetan monk who self-immolated at Amdo Ngaba in the crossroads of the market. We have numerous eyewitnesses who report that he was shot at 3 times and hit once by the police. Well, here you see he is surrounded by police. He's clearly conscious. There's tatters of his robes around him. He's looking up, and there is one officer, one police with a gun drawn very clearly in the foreground of the picture. But he just looks, it's such a heartbreaking photo. I mean, there he is on the ground, surrounded by these, thugs as far as we're concerned. And he's this lone character, somewhat forlorn in the midst of what must have been a terribly chaotic and awful moment. What it would have been like to be there and be witness to this really disturbing and yet moving act of defiance by Tape. So these photos are really amazing that they even got out of Tibet, and the people who sent them out, of course, at great risk to themselves because Tibet is so locked down right now.
Yes, and there is another photo that we want to show you. This is a photo taken on February 12th or 13th, just 2 weeks before Losar, Tibetan New Year. And in this photo you see an army truck. The Chinese army truck is moving through Ngaba, and it's filled with Chinese soldiers, pointing guns, literally. And on the side of the truck you can see this letter, this script in Tibetan, and it reads, the translation is something like, "We salute the people of Ngaba." In Tibetan it's Ngaba Mimangla Kutushu. So we salute the people of Ngaba. This is really ironic, and it's in fact quite funny if it weren't for the fact that those people living in Ngaba are in real danger from those guns, and if the reality wasn't really that dark and scary, then this would be like a joke almost.
Yeah, we salute you with our guns. That's the message of China to Tibet. That's the message of the Chinese nation to the Tibetans, clearly. So March 10th is just around the corner, and this will mark 50 years since the Tibetan people took to the streets of Lhasa and demanded that China leave Tibet and attempted to check the life of their beloved leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And still that same message is coming out of Tibet all these years later. Despite some of the most brutal oppression that I think the world has ever seen by one massive force on a small, number of people armed only with faith and hope and belief in their freedom, Tibetans haven't given up. And people around the world will be taking to the streets, have already taken to the streets in London and Victoria and elsewhere. There's dozens of cities participating this year in the observance of March 10th. And not just protests, but also coordinated government lobbying in a way we've never seen before. So it's a new era of resistance, not just inside Tibet, but outside of Tibet. And we encourage everybody to get involved and to be a part of this year's historic March 10th observance.
Yeah, and I think this is the 50th anniversary, and we've been talking about how we are at yet another crossroads in Tibetan history. In 1959 we were at a crossroads, and today again we are at another crossroads. And this time it seems like when you look at history, when empires crack down and when they use overwhelming kind of violence on the people that they subjugate, it's usually when they are feeling that they are imploding and losing control and disintegrating. So if you look at Soviet Union, any other empires in history, I think the Chinese government today is behaving in a very similar way. So amid all this depressing news and chaos and suffering and oppression, I think there is a lot of hope for the Tibetan people.
Yeah, it's certainly not over, that's for sure. There'll be resistance for generations to come if that's what it takes. And we're committed to being in it and being, active participants in that resistance to the day we die. Isn't that right, Tendor?
Word.
All right, this is Our Nation from Hong Kong and Dharamsala.
News and analysis on the state of Tibet. Thanks for watching us.